All right, everyone. So the last thing we're really going to do is we're going to try to build our own animating gesture with the hand models. Okay. So this is going to take a little work in Blender or some program that has a some sort of armature or skeleton system. So we're going to start with Blender. And I just want to kind of show you what an armature is. This is what they call it in Blender. An armature is like this little kind of metal skeleton that kind of exists inside of a lot of stop motion, like Night Before Christmas or Chicken Run or something. They have these like metal armatures inside of it. Think of it kind of like a skeletal system, the way humans have a skeletal system. And the point of this is really to kind of make it easier to do kind of stop motion because the plastic or the clay is on top of the skeleton and you can move the skeleton in the same way our bones move and they drag along our skin, right? So I have a Blender file. It's called hand model. Okay, you can open it from Unity if you want, or just open it into Blender itself. It's a .blend file. And I modeled a very basic hand here. I literally spent, I think, like 2 minutes. Okay. It's basically a cube that I, extruded parts out of, basically. All right. Now, at the moment, this is my hand. Okay. And what we're going to do is we are going, in this video, I'm going to teach you guys really quickly how to do a skeletal or an armature system. And then how do we animate that in Unity? Okay. All right, so I have my model here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to top view, and I'm going to put this into wireframe mode. And under add, make sure you're in object mode. I'm going to go to armature, okay? And when you do that, what's probably going to happen is you're going to get this thing right here, okay? This is a bone, okay? And when you do this, you're actually adding a new type of element in Blender if you've never done this, and this is called a bone system. So you know how like this is your object data, and we if I had the model, there's like material data. Well, this is actually you can click on this bone here, this little green thing, and this is bone data. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I kind see how the bone is kind of sticking straight up. I'm going to build a bone system that goes along here, and it's going to go off to the various fingers and knuckles so that because essentially like my finger here has like this bone, this bone, this bone, and then it has all the bones here. So if I'm curling my fingers, I'm really rotating this bone, this bone, and this bone to do that. And that's kind of what we're going to try to do. Okay. So I'm going to call this bone root bone. You can name each bone, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. And what I'm going to do is just rotate it so it fits the direction. So I'm going to rotate this negative 90 degrees or 270 degrees. Okay, and I'm going to go back to top mode so we can see it. And what I'm going to do is once you have a bone, we can actually extrude bones kind of like how we would extrude faces out of a model. So I'm going to go to edit mode, and you can see I can click on the top of that bone, and using the up down arrow keys, I can kind of move it, kind of like how we could move faces or vertices in Blender. And I'm just going to move it to about there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude a bone that goes from here to here, here to here, and then here to here. Okay. And this is just so that my thumb can basically do like that. Even, I don't know, maybe, you know what I mean? So what I'm going to do is you can extrude by hitting E for extrude. And I'm just going to click there. And then I'm going to click again to about the middle. And then I'm going to click there. So I've added a bone here, here, and then here. Okay. I'm gonna now extrude, I'm gonna click back on this bone and I'm gonna click to there. And I'm adding in the knuckle and the tip. So I do recommend that when you add bones, you don't have to do it all at once. But what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna go back to object mode. Um, Actually, I have to put it in edit mode, don't I? Yeah, sorry. I'm gonna go back to edit mode because this is how you can name the bones. I'm gonna call this bone thumb, and I'm gonna call this, um, I'll call this thumb joint, and then I'm gonna call this one thumb fingertip, thumb tip. And I'm gonna call this one thumb base. So I'm going to call this one thumb, finger one, finger two, finger three, finger four. You can come up with whatever naming system you want. So I'm going to call this one finger one tip, finger one joint. And then we'll call this one finger one base. And I'm basically going to kind of do this for the rest. Okay, so I'm going to click back here, extrude. I'll just finish up getting all these extrusions. Now you can add more or less bones. The reason why naming the bones is useful is this is going to help us when we animate them in Unity. All right, so I'm building a very basic armature or a skeletal system here. All right, I'm going to go back and I'm going to call this one finger two tip. I'm going to call this one finger two joint. And I'm going to call this one finger two base. This will be finger three base. This one will be finger three joint. And this one will be finger three tip. And I'll call this one finger four base, finger four joint, and then finger four tip. Oops, tip. All right. All right, I have all my bones, and what I'm going to do is kind of look at my model here, and I actually did a pretty good job where the bones are inside of the model. Let's just hypothetically say they weren't. Like, let's say I had something that looked kind of like this, where the bones are kind of more at the base or the top. You could highlight, if you highlight the root bone, the main bone, which is this one, you can move all of them. Which is kind of what I might want to do in this case. So I'm just going to look from it from the side view. Let's just say for the sake of argument, I wanted one of the bones to go up. I could highlight that bone in edit mode. Oops, no, not the model, but the armature. There we go. So I have an armature here in my outliner. I'm just going to hit edit mode so I can highlight the bone. And you could move just that bone. See how like when you move a bone, the other bones connected to it automatically move? Okay. And so that's good. I'm going to click here. No, not add bone constraint. Sorry, I'm looking for something. Not constraints, bones. This is my armature, and I'm gonna, under viewport display, if you wanted to see the names of the bones, you could click on names and you could see them right there. You could also do in front, which means even if your model is on, you can still see the bones, which kind of like X-ray mode a little bit. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to show that. So this is the end of part one, which is, oh, sorry, I lied. It's not the end of part one. We do have the armature. Now we actually have to set the armature or the model to the armature or connect the two. Because right now we have the armature, which is this part here, which is this, the bone structure, and then we have the model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the model first, and I'm going to hold down Shift and grab the armature. And I'm going to go to Object Parent, Armature Deform with Automatic Weights. I'm going to click on that. Oops, no, I lied. Click the armature first and then the model. I always forget which one is first. I apologize. Armature selected first, then select the model, object, parent, armature deform with automatic weights. Okay. You want to make sure that the armature is the top object here, and then the model is a subset of that. Okay. So what this is going to do is attach your model to the armature. Okay. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to click on the armature here, and you're actually going to get this thing called pose mode. What that allows you to do is to move the bones. And when I move the bones, you'll actually see that it moves the model. See how it does that? So that's kind of what we're going to be doing here, where, we're actually not going to do it in this program. We're going to do it in Unity. But what we're essentially able to do now is I can maneuver the armature, which is in turn going to maneuver or affect the model. Okay. So now that I got that, I'm just going to save this. Okay. And then what's going to happen is we're going to go to part 2. And what I'm going to do in part 2 is we're going to add the model, this Blender file to Unity, to our project, and then we're going to animate it. Okay.